Hi, in today's video we're going to take a look at documentary film scoring. While documentary film scoring and narrative scoring have their similarities, they are at their core different. Narrative film scores can, depending upon the film, become very supportive and driving and become the main focal point of a film. Whereas documentary work, the score is very much supportive and in the background. Now, being supportive and in the background is very difficult. It's hard to create music that is not noticeable, but also lifts the scene. So with that said, let's jump on in and get to work. So like I mentioned in the intro, today I wanted to talk about documentary film scoring and how to go about creating a score for a documentary work. Documentary works are similar, but also very different when it comes to composition. Scoring is supposed to be obviously complementary to the visuals, but in documentary scoring, it's even more supportive. And the piece we're looking at today is from a PBS documentary I did back in 2018 or 19. And it follows the story of this mother and her daughter as they travel through Europe with this journal from the mother's grandmother. And she had firsthand accounts of pogroms, which are ethnic cleansing of Jews. And the journal just kind of goes through all of the places where she experienced these terrible tragedies and family members were killed and buried. And the main thing we're looking at today is this one scene where this mother and her daughter are in this unmarked grave site. And from the journals, they determined that this is where this woman's brother was buried. And it's a very emotional and powerful scene because up to this point, they've seen all these travesties, but it's become a firsthand experience to their family personally. And so this is the first time where the main theme for the film is introduced. It's actually introduced at the very, very beginning, but it's the first time it actually comes into fruition in this story. And so I wanted to approach it thematically similar to how John Williams did the Force theme from Star Wars. Obviously, the Force can be used for good or evil. And so, but there's not a character attached to it. It's this entity. And so when they say the word pogrom, I don't play the theme, but it's when it's impacting the characters in a very deep emotional way, that's when the theme enters. So now we're going to dive into this cue and dissect it. And I'm going to show you how I came up with the theme. The theme is very simple, but it's very powerful and supportive. So let's jump on in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the cue, and we're going to jump in a couple frames before the previous section to get our transition point. So here we go.
Sex had first driven us from our home, I knew he would not survive the war. And so it turned out to be.
Kalman was a victim of the typhus epidemic that was then sweeping the region. His body was lost and likely buried in a mass grave in the Jewish cemetery in Kiev.
But this is for certain that cemetery where Kalman was buried. This is almost everything.
Almost all that remains is here.
Almost all what remains from the cemetery is here.
There couldn't have been a tombstone for Kalman because, he was never buried by his family. So
hard to say, hard to tell. But this was the horrible time. This was the time of poverty, of fight, of total disaster and mess.
Here comes the main theme.
Both my father and Rose, they were probably two of the most undemanding people you could ever meet. And I'm beginning to understand that better. And I'm sure they learned that there was no point in demanding or asking. There wasn't anything to give them.
Then we have the next cue. So Like I mentioned at the gate, there's not a lot going on harmonically with this cue. It's very much textural. So if we actually pull this up and check this out, this cue right here, we have a couple parts. Let me close this movie out. We have these textures that I made with my Minimoog. And then I have this texture right here. It's kind of like a bending microtonal thing. It's just to provide support. But the foundation of this cue is built upon the Korg Minilogue pad that I made. It's got these kind of sweeping sounds here. In context with everything else, it sounds like this. All the other pads going on underneath it and textures. So it's just more or less creating a sound bed, if you would say. Just providing support for the narrative. They're walking towards this site. And then I have 3 little VSTs that are actually Logic plugins that sound great. Fireflies, Event Horizon, and Ambient Guitar Landscape. So these are just more bouncy kind of textures. So you got these bouncy textures here. We've got this high-pitched sound from the Fireflies plugin. Just a high-pitched tone. It's kind of mirroring the Minimoog sound that I made. And then we have the main portion that comes in here. If we look at versus build, this is where we're building to this portion and we're going to drop down. So we're building to this precipice, which is the melody, which is right here. Okay. So up until this point, it's just all pads and whatnot. When we get to this point, so at this point, we're just in A minor. We're not really rocking around. The chords are playing other extensions of A minor, but it's relatively just A minor. And then here's where our harmony comes in, which is the melody. And I don't end it. I end it on the 9 in one of the melodies because it's not resolved, which as we talked about in previous videos as well, is kind of setting tension and not resolving the tension. So if I actually pull up the harmony for this, this is what we're hearing. Let me just mute or just do solo the strings. So we've got the melody, and it actually happens right as soon as we cut to their hand. If we pull this up here, melody kicks in right here, right as soon as we cut to this right here. This is where the melody kicks in. So at their embrace. So the harmony wise, we got A minor, A over E, F major, C, so harmonically, it's really simple. It's a very minimal melody, so I wanted to have something that was very emotional and sweeping. And harmonically, it's basic. It's just A minor. So we do the 5 to the flat 7, if you want to think of it in terms of notes and chord harmony structure. And then we have an A minor over an E with A minor 11 over E. So we have this D in the melody, and then we go to the third, the minor third, and then we go to an F major, okay, which is the flat 6, I guess you want to call it that if we're in A minor, and then to the flat 3, and then it repeats the same phrase. And then we end on the A minor again, but we have a little 9 in the voicing to end it, to not have resolution, like I mentioned earlier. If you notice as well, orchestration-wise, we just have synthesizers for this main portion. Textural, supportive, and then I chose to do the strings because obviously they're very emotional. They have a lot of depth to them, but I wanted something different that would stand apart from the synthesizers, and they kind of soar over top. Do you have that 9 in there? The 9, the B. It's a subtle texture. But it gives us that unresolved nature that I was going for. And like I said, this is a really simple cue. And I could have just written drones or very minimal things, and it would have worked great. And the first portion of this cue actually did that. I did a very simple little textures and stuff. But I wanted the audience to have an emotional connection to these people, these real people with real stories. And I wanted the audience to experience the grief that they were feeling. So that's why I really made sure to take the time to develop the melody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful or insightful to you in some way. If you haven't checked it out, there are links right here to previous videos I've done in case you want to check them out. I've talked about tempo change, modulation, scoring from a script, using analog synthesizers, corporate work, dance work, all sorts of stuff. And I hope that these resources have been helpful to you in some way. If there's anything that you'd like to see me do or discuss, please shoot me a message or comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.